are talking about the fact that Kashmir is being discussed in the corridors and echelons of Oxford universities as a problem, as a subject which of course is highly offensive to what's actually happening in Kashmir since the last few years. After the abrogation of Article 370, things have started to look up. There are problems that still persist. There is a security threat from time to time, but if you look at the numbers, if you compare what's what in the last 5 years, things have greatly changed. There was a recent election in Jammu and Kashmir where of course the attendance and the voter turnout was not only promising but also heartening, giving a clear call that democracy is at its zenith in this part of the country. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Mr. S.P. Vaid, former DGP, Jammu and Kashmir, Lord Rami Ranger, member of the House of Lords of the United Kingdom, also joins us on the show. Major General Shashi Asthana, defence expert, with us on the program as well. Tarun Gulati, former Reform UK parliamentary candidate for Cities of London, also with us on the show. Nicholas Nugent, senior journalist, with us on the program as well. Thank you everyone for being a part of this conversation. Really appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with us. Lord Rami Ranger, I'll begin with you. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you, yes.
So thank you and appreciate you speaking with us. Well, Kashmir is a very sensitive topic within India, and when it's discussed in lights which are perhaps not completely comprehended or understood either in Oxford University or Cambridge or the parliaments or by politicians of various other countries, it is offensive to India. It is been a problem. It has been offered a solution which has been working for the past few years. Why do you think that there is so much focus towards a problem, which is perhaps not really relevant in the current context of the problems that the UK has itself? Your thoughts?
You see, it is very unfortunate that people decide to discuss the politics of sovereign country in a different country. It's like India discussing the independence of Quebec or Scotland. How would they like it? So therefore, first of all, they claim about self-determination. Kashmiris have self-determination. They can form a political party. They can select a leader of their own choice. They can run the province as they deem fit. However, they are not allowed to use religion card in the absence of marriage to devalue fellow Kashmiris. It is worth remembering that the original inhabitant of Kashmir were the Hindus. All the other settlers came afterward. Just because they are in a majority, that does not give them right to declare the original inhabitant second class. Exactly what happened in Pakistan. And you can see the state of Pakistan today. When you discriminate against any section of your population, you are bound to stop your progress. And you can see how many countries in the world offer equality to women. Equality of women, everyone, regardless of race, religion, gender, is enshrined in the Indian Constitution. Therefore, no one can use race or religion card to surge ahead. If they want to surge ahead, they have to rise above the rest on merit. Unfortunately, there are some people, they have no merit except to find a topic to galvanize like-minded people to feel important. India should ignore them. India is a very big, powerful country, economic power, military power, and soft power in the world, exporting doctors, engineers, scientists, teachers, businessmen to the world. India is influencing not one country, but many countries. You just have to see during COVID how much contribution Indian scientists contributed to the welfare of poor people who would not have been able to afford vaccine from the West. And also the peacekeeping forces of United Nations, maximum forces are sent by the Indians, and wherever there is a trouble, Indians are there. Therefore, India must ignore these people because they're irrelevant to the the bigger picture of India. India is on the Mars on the moon. IT industry number one, pharmaceutical number one, film industry number one. You name Indian diaspora is contributing huge amount to wherever they settle. All the blue chip companies are run by Indian. So these guys are just irrelevant, just irritant to India. And we are a very old civilization with culture, with heritage, with history, to be the best in the world, and we are becoming the best. And this is exactly what they want to do, is to divide us so they can replicate the history where one by one they can come, conquer, and exploit us for thousands of years. We are not going to be divided. We are one, and the constitution has guaranteed everybody. Kashmir is a very fortunate country. There's a lot of development taking place, universities, hospitals, airports, shopping malls. Development is taking place. You just have to look across the other side from the sky and look at the lights, how many lights are being emitted from one part of the Kashmir to the other part. So anyway, this is just a little irritant. We just have to ride over it and ignore it totally. And this is what immature democracies do. They give freedom to people like Trudeau. They're given separatists a lot of freedom.
Absolutely.
And dividing his own country. So therefore, we should not allow Britain, America, Canada, Australia, allow any forces to divide the community. Let the politics of subcontinent remain in subcontinent. People are mature. People are, there's a very big democracy, the biggest in the world. They know how to rule themselves and how to manage their affairs. So therefore, I will ignore them and I just laugh at them.
All right. Ambassador Bhaspati Mukherjee, former diplomat, also joins us on the show. Ma'am, apart from, having these debates about Kashmir during the Oxford Union being uncalled for, do you think that these unsolicited, unhinged conversation about, another country's internal issue is also, in a way, fueling problems and troubles where there are none? Is it also the culmination of a ripple effect which India does not need? And should there be a penalty or a backlash, diplomatically or otherwise, when it comes to talking about Kashmir? But by the Oxford University, it's not their place to be interfering in this because they don't completely comprehend what's going on.
The Oxford University comprehends perfectly what's going on, Vineet. The Oxford University is one of the pillars of colonialism and apartheid. The Oxford University is the university which has sent so many prime ministers and foreign ministers of UK who have been responsible for the ruthless and terrible exploitation of India's resources at a time when there was no fundamental Bill of Human Rights, no United Nations, etc. It is extremely ironic that the country that came to colonize us then planted the poisoned seeds of communalism so as to divide us forever, as they did elsewhere in the world, including in Africa, should today be discussing an issue which is not only an internal issue, but it's an issue that was created by the colonizer. After 1857, when the Brits understood that when Hindus and Muslims fight together, they'll be out on the ocean in no time at all, they set out to dismantle the British Indian Army based on caste and religion, thinking that then they could rule us forever. As far as Kashmir is concerned, they are fully aware of the fact that had we not had the foolishness to keep Lord Mountbatten as our first Governor General in post-independent India, we would not have lost POK in any case. The second issue is that they should understand that those who divide and rule, ultimately the wheel always turns full circle. What are we seeing in the great United Kingdom today? It's a second-rate power. Its GDP is less than India. It has gone through a very painful Brexit and it has not really recovered. Its economy has not recovered. It faces independence movements in Scotland, in Wales. It has a big problem in Ireland, and how to manage the Brexit with the agreement, the Good Friday Agreement, is a problem that every British Prime Minister has grappled with. And more than that, there is a toxic atmosphere in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is not able to control its restless Muslim fundamentalist minorities who one day will surely call the shots, and they're fully aware of that. Maybe one day United Kingdom will no longer be a white man's haven. It could be taken over by the brown. The Indians have in any case already semi-colonized London by being today, along with the Russians, the biggest buyer of real estate. Do they have a cuisine with chicken tikka masala? What do they have to offer the world? Nothing. So in my perspective, they want to debate Kashmir. Please go ahead, be my guest. We will then debate the downfall of the British Empire. We will debate how United Kingdom has become a second-rate country with second-rate people. We will debate whether or not Scotland should become independent, what's happening in Wales, what's happening to the Good Friday Agreement, etc. We can debate it also. It's no issue. They want to discuss Kashmir as if they are still our colonial overlord, forgetting that they are sitting on all our heritage in their British Museum and other museums, Victoria and Albert Museum, etc. They forget that the world is laughing at them. Do they deserve to be permanent members of the Security Council? What a joke. Should not India be as a permanent member? Yes. So for me, it's a matter of, it's an unfortunate issue, but I would laugh at their face and say, you want to discuss Kashmir? Please go ahead. We will discuss all your warts and your flaws, and I would quote back to them from the Bible, "O brother, why lookest thou at the mote in mine eye, and lookest not thou at the mote in thine own eye?" is the way I would conclude any discussion with the Brits on this matter.
Well said, ma'am. Well said. Let me also rope in the senior journalist, Nicholas Nugent, into this conversation. Nicholas, thank you for being here. I hope you can hear me. Nicholas, are you there with us?
Yes, I am.
All right. You heard, what the emotion is when it comes to Kashmir.
Yes.
And of course, if you want to talk about an eye for an eye kind of a concept, which of course is not going to be appropriate here. India too can talk about Ireland. India too can talk about Scotland and Wales. But we don't do that. What focus you attach to a particular problem also narrates and suggests how important it is. Where do you prioritize it? But with all the problems that the United Kingdom is facing right now, is Kashmir really a concern for them? What do you think?
Well, look, you're putting me in the dock, and I ask you not to put me in the dock. I am an independent journalist, a free thinker, and I don't represent either Oxford University or the British government. So let me say, I thought I was joining this to discuss the rights and wrongs of Oxford Union Debating Society having a debate about Kashmir. As it happens, I've been to a debate about Kashmir in the Cambridge Union when I was a student there very many years ago. And the Indian High Commissioner of the time was one of those speakers. I'm only telling you that because I believe very strongly, as do the universities in particular, in the right of free speech, in the right to debate contemporary issues. And I think it's very healthy when these things are debated. But I seem to have been put in the dock and heard a lot about colonial history and such forth. I'm not representing a view on that, but are we looking at the rights and wrongs of the expression of free speech? If I were to follow Lord Ramiranger's argument, he probably should say we shouldn't even be debating Ukraine and Russia in Britain today because they're not British affairs. But of course we are debating them very much, not to mention the Middle East. It is a tradition of a free-speaking nation that you do debate the issues of the day. And as for Ambassador Mukherjee comparing the movement for independence in Scotland, for example, well, we had a vote. We had a plebiscite, to use the word that's often associated with Kashmir. We had a plebiscite in 2014, and the people of Scotland decided marginally not to break away. So there's free speech. That's how this country works, and I hope India works, that we do debate these issues, and ultimately we give the choice to the people. Now, I'm not taking a position on Kashmir. I happen to have been many times in Srinagar. I've even met the JKLF. You probably condemn me for that, but I am a journalist. I've even been in Muzaffarabad, so I know the Kashmir story quite well. And from a journalist point of view, I can tell you that this is a lively story that comes and goes. And I think anyone is entitled to debate it, because you're not going to resolve issues by condemning the fact that they are debated in a place like the Oxford Union. So I'm standing here for free speech and the right of people to debate the issues. And I hope I get some support for that, rather than you condemning me as a latter-day colonialist, because I'm not. I can assure you I'm not. And I do take very seriously the sensitivity of the issue within India. I have been reporting India for very many years, so I know the issues involved. So that's my contribution.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. It's a democracy. You have the right to say what you feel. You're an independent journalist. Obviously, we're not going to take offense to that, and you have your own views when it comes to these issues. You've been in Kashmir. You've been on the other side as well. Before I move on to the other guests, I also would want Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee once again to respond to what Nicholas said.
I would respond by reminding that when freedom of speech was first elaborated upon, it was and other liberties, it was clearly stated in the very British university that I studied in, that one's liberty ends when it impinges on one's neighbor's liberty. In this particular case, it's not freedom of speech. It is interference by an ex-colonizer in their former colony's internal affairs. It is unacceptable, it is intrusive, and it gives the impression that our big brother and big father has not forgotten that we are now big boys. We don't need advice from those who divided us, partitioned us, impoverished us, and left us bleeding, and gave us the advice, oh, you people. And that is what the last Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, had said, including during the Bengal famine. He said, serve them right for breeding like rabbits. And then he asked, if there is a famine and 10 million have died in Bengal, how come Gandhi is still alive? This was their contribution. And do the British think that we will forget our history? Do the British think that we will take this as freedom of speech? No, we do not. We take it as gross interference in our internal affairs, as any self-respecting citizen of an independent country would take. And I think it would be better for our ex-colonizers to be a little more sensitive and not bring it down to freedom of speech. Because what happened when there was freedom of speech? What happened in France, for instance, when Prophet Muhammad was insulted? Somebody went inside Charlie Hebdo and chopped off their head. Then it didn't happen again. But what happens in India is that we are a peace-loving people. We welcomed in our colonizers who said they were coming to trade. They overstayed. They divided us. They took away our wealth. They stopped the Industrial Revolution. And then we have a colleague from an independent journalist who says he is here to uphold freedom of speech. So am I. I uphold freedom of speech. But I don't agree that I will allow my ex-colonizers the right to interfere in my internal affairs. When the British left India, who drew the frontiers? Those ridiculous frontiers. Why did they leave in a hurry without a proper transfer of power? What did they do elsewhere in the world? They drew up the most ridiculous frontiers. They didn't care, for instance, that the border they drew up with Afghanistan was like, to quote a friend who's written a book on it, like a dagger held to the Pathan heart. They didn't realize that the frontiers that they drew between India and China would leave us forever in conflict. That is their contribution. So I think we can forget about freedom of speech and remember that freedom of speech applies equally to all. And when one has colonized a country and has never said sorry for Jallianwala Bagh, for all those human rights atrocities, I don't give them that right to interfere in the internal affairs of the country to which I was born post-independent India. Thank God for that.
Okay. All right. Let's also, in fact,
I need to. I
yeah.
need
Go
to
ahead, sir.
respond
Go
as
ahead, sir.
well.
I was coming to you,
I
sir.
need
Go
to
ahead, sir.
respond.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Nugent, you are a journalist and you need to have your facts really crystal clear. Kashmir was an independent country. Who invaded Kashmir? Why did Kashmir turn to India for help? I hope you know the history of Kashmir. Intention of going into Kashmir. If the Kabilis, the tribesmen, had not come to loot and plunder Kashmir and rape women, so you should be thankful to India that they saved the Kashmiris from them. Number two, you are comparing Ukraine, Russia to India. India never invaded Kashmir. Russia has invaded Ukraine. So therefore, freedom of speech is fine, but it has to be based on logic and facts, and not just using a rhetoric, freedom of speech. I have a freedom of speech, but at the same time, my freedom of speech should have historical justification that if India has gone to Kashmir to conquer or to liberate those people who are being oppressed and suppressed in the name of religion and by those people, the tribal forces. Therefore, please do not compare the two, Kashmir and Ukraine, because Kashmir is a totally independent country, fully aligned to the Constitution of India, getting maximum development, maximum support from the taxpayer of India, giving them cheaper electricity, cheaper food, cheaper everything. India doesn't want to colonize anybody. In 1971, India liberated Bangladesh. India could have held on to Bangladesh because when you divided India, no plebiscite was, no referendum was taken. Can we divide a country? You arbitrarily divided country. I was on the other side of the border. My father was assassinated. I became refugee, along with 1 million more innocent people lost their life, and 15 million became refugees in the country of their birth. What do you call that? I have suffered all my life without father because I never saw my father as a posthumous. You should check me on Google. The amount of suffering still continues with people who lost everything, their ancestral home, their places of worship. These communities have lived together for centuries, sharing common history, common heritage, common folklore, common language, common everything. Now we are arch enemies. We were one at one time. Who has done that? Please, little bit, kindness, empathy for those who are the victim of colonial power will not go amiss. It will show you a greater human being than just trying to be, rising, telling you are above all, you believe in freedom of speech. Where was the freedom of speech when massacres were taking place in Kenya and other countries? Where were your ancestors about freedom of speech? Did they speak about Jallianwala Bagh massacre, where innocent people died? Where was that freedom of speech? Please, I'm sorry, I respect you, but you have really gone down in my esteem.
Okay,
making a statement.
That warrants a response from Nicholas as well. I'm going to let him come in and respond to what you have said. Then we'll rope in General Asthana as well. Nicholas, would you like to respond? Nicholas, would you like to respond?
Yes, indeed. I'll try and be brief, but Ambassador Madam Mukherjee, I respect what you said, and you'd probably be surprised to know that I would agree with a great deal of what you said. But look, I'm not the British government, and we're not. If the British government had changed its policy on Kashmir, then I would be on your side. But that's not happened. What's happened is a debate at the Oxford Union, which is frankly harmless. It's not going to affect policy. I have a lot of agreement with both yourself and Lord Rami Ranger when we talk about history. After all, I'm a student of Indian history, and I've been coming and going to India for most of my life, from the 1960s. So I'm not a new boy on this topic. And I've been with all these subjects, and I've spent quite a lot of time reporting them. All I'm saying is, please don't make this as an argument about British foreign policy, because it's not British foreign policy. This is a harmless debate going on in Oxford. If we look at the rights and wrongs and the history of Kashmir, it is very, very complicated. I know that, and I wouldn't begin to express a view beyond saying that there are strong views on all sides. As I told you, I'd met the JKLF during a visit to Srinagar in the 1990s, I think it was. Their view deserves to be heard, but I don't want to go down that path, because I'm not here to disagree with you or criticize you, or indeed ruffle up the sensitivities of India over Kashmir. I know they are very strong. All I am saying is Oxford got on with a little bit of free speech to debate an issue. I don't know what sides, I don't even know the motion, and I don't know who will win, and I don't know who's represented there beyond what I've been shown, mentioned in the press. So I'm just trying to keep this to a debate about if it were a British government move, I'd be much closer to your point of view than this, but it's not a British government point of view, because the British government's not interfering.
All right.
And as for history, yes, we can debate history and the rights and wrongs of partition.
Okay, fair point.
And I'm much closer to you than you might imagine.
Fair point, Nicholas. Fair point. Let me rope in General Asthana as well. General Asthana, I really don't need to ask you a question. You've heard, what's been going on, what we've been talking about. There's the free speech angle that is being talked about here. And of course, there is this separation of policy from what the Oxford University is doing. It's not British foreign policy to talk about this. But do you think, sir, and I'm going to go out on a limb to put out this perspective, that usually what happens in universities is also done, under the larger garb of what the government of the day believes and what the government of that day facilitates. Do you concur, sir?
Firstly, as far as whatever the discussion has taken place so far, my due regards to all the co-panelists. First, let me first respond to you. I have also done my doctorate from Jawaharlal Nehru University, which is also known for free speech. And there is also a fair amount of topics which are taken place, which are discussed there. But then the problem is not with what Oxford is whether it stands for free speech or otherwise. The problem is of the topic. The topic which they have taken, it is factually incorrect. And when you have factually incorrect topic on a situation which is very, very sensitive to some other country, I think people need to be very careful. Now let me put that in context. The context is that there is no doubt that there was one country under Maharaja Hari Singh called as Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. He was the Maharaja, and this included the Kashmir, the Aksai Chin, the Gilgit-Baltistan, the so-called POK, as well as all other elements of Kashmir. This signed, Maharaja Hari Singh signed an instrument of accession. That's the only legal document. There is no other legal document. Now with that document, the entire Kashmir, not in bits and parts, belongs to India. So therefore, the Kashmir belongs to India is a stated fact. It's a legal fact. Nobody can dispute it. When we come to the partition part of it, so therefore, there is no doubt that Kashmir belongs to India in legally and in whichever manner you talk about it. Now, when it came to partition, we all know, and I'm sure Nicholas will also know, and others also, I've been very learned panelist, everybody knows. See, the fact was, UK wanted to checkmate USSR. They knew that the entire India will not be in their favor. It's better to divide it into Pakistan and India, include Pakistan into CETO and CENTO, and make sure that you have your presence felt. You took fair amount of guys from Pakistan, and that's how there are a whole lot of lawmakers in UK who are sympathetic to Pakistan. So all this is part of history. The irony was, in which not only the British but some of our people are also involved, that we continued with the Commander-in-Chief and the Governor-General of UK, who ensured that the war of 1947-48 is fought in a manner that a British officer in Gilgit-Baltistan surrenders to Pakistan Army and gets the highest award of UK, highest gallantry award of UK and also of Pakistan, to make sure that that becomes part of Pakistan. We also had a situation wherein the Indian Army could have captured the entire remaining Kashmir in 1947-48 war towards the end, and since both these wars, both the commanders-in-chief of both the countries were reporting to the same guy who was a UK citizen, the war was played out in a manner that we were stopped for ensuring the complete integrated Kashmir becomes part of it. Rest everything is a history. Rest everything is, shall I say, is a narrative. Now, there is a narrative which, unfortunately, the people don't understand because there is local dynamics involved. See, there is a narrative in Pakistan that Kashmir, Pakistan Army is, we all know that Pakistan Army controls Pakistan. There is no doubt about it. 50% they directly governed it, remaining 50% they indirectly do so. Now the problem is that Pakistan Army wants to create a situation and called a theory called as the India threat theory. Now this India threat theory can only remain if you have a dispute. If you have a dispute, then what happens is you can send terrorists, there will be some problem, and then you will find that okay, you can tell your people that okay, India is a threat. Because India is a threat, so therefore the all levers of power should be with me. So this is a internal dynamics of this region. Now nobody talks about this. Nobody talks, as I was mentioned, there was no free speech for Jallianwala Bagh. There was no free speech for some other things also. So therefore you can't have a selective free speech. And secondly, the free speech cannot concoct facts. So there are certain facts on ground, and those facts cannot be refuted. Now as far as the other issues are concerned, when we are talking about who are the guys who are debating. Now you pick up, when you are talking about free speech, let's also take the bias part of it. You pick up one terrorist from India and you make him a panelist. You pick up another guy who has got a, shall I say, linkage with the terror groups and on whom you have case in your British, in UK itself. And the hate speech cases in UK itself. Now you pick up such guys and then try and debate. Then obviously what you will get. Now as Nicholas was, as he mentioned very rightly, that he was in touch with JKLF. If JKLF could not win one single election, I dare challenge JKLF to stand for election in Kashmir and win one seat. And then you will realize what JKLF is all about and what the actual dynamics is all about. So no terrorist wins elections. Even in Pakistan, they sponsor thousands of terrorists.
So what's your impression of JKLF? What's your expression and impression of JKLF? Of course, Nicholas said that he's met them and he understands what they stood for.
Yeah, so see, there was, once the instrument of accession was signed, once the Indian Army went in, once Indian Army saved Kashmir, thereafter where is the case for so-called independent Kashmir? Because after that what has happened is we have got elections, we have got everything. I mean Kashmir is governing itself, Kashmir is progressing. The amount of investment which has been done in Kashmir is more than perhaps the residual GDP of Pakistan. That much amount has been spent in Kashmir as far as the development is concerned. So I think this is a sensitive subject. The universities have to be little careful in choosing a subject number one, because a subject, the title by itself cannot be a violation of the fact which any other country is sensitive about. So that's one point of it. Similarly, as far as the other kind of free speech is concerned, whether Ukraine or Russia, I think we also discussed Ukraine and Russia, but that's not the, but that doesn't mean that we are going to change facts or put up a topic which does not match the actual, shall I say, facts historical facts.
Okay, all right. Let me also rope in Mr. Tarun
Back to you.
Gulati. He's been waiting for so long. Mr. Gulati, appreciate your patience. I hope you can hear me.
For having me.
Right. What have you understood and gathered from, of course, what we have been discussing, and from the reactions and the responses that you've assimilated from the other panelists?
Well, firstly, Kashmir was, is, and always remain a part of India. There should be no dispute about that, as the general clearly highlighted. Secondly, the topic that was discussed by the Oxford Union is not a topic at all for discussion. And the panelists, JKLF and the others, are biased. A debate is useful when there are both sides to a debate, and the Oxford Union has been doing it and doing it well. But in this case, the topic itself should never have been allowed. And indeed, there are students there who come from Kashmir. I'm a proud Britisher, but actually, I wear my badge of honor being a Hindu and a Sanatani and a person of Indian origin. I grew up there. Something like this should never have been allowed. The Oxford University should come out openly and say this was a mistake. That's the first thing. Secondly, UK, in terms of free speech does not mean you can discuss anything. For instance, the UK government has to come out and say, look, we've got to understand what's happened in Canada is not looking good, and what's happening here. I was discussing the fact last year when our flag was desecrated at the High Commission, and if I stood for mayor before that, and if I was the mayor, that should never have been allowed. If that happened in Delhi, a British flag coming down, we can understand the hue and cry. Regarding discussing the internal matter of a country in a foreign land, that should again never be allowed. And where it comes to free speech, I believe the UK government, and indeed Keir Starmer, should actually come out and not allow such things, because he had a spat with Elon Musk, wanted to take Twitter off. There has been in Parliament, the Speaker has stopped discussion on certain killings in Southport. So there, you can't have a sort of two-tiered approach even to free speech. So indeed, where Kashmir is concerned, there should be no debate on a topic like this. If it was a debate where, how do we bring about peace? What are the ideas? What are the chances? What are the routes? Now, some discussion like that would be fantastic, but the topic itself is deplorable, despicable, and I think it was deliberate, because the president of the union, I believe, comes from Pakistan, so he may have been motivated by the ISI, I wouldn't know. And JKLF, we know, is not a body that should have been represented on the debate here. So in my opinion, we would never in India allow such a debate. And as some of the panelists highlighted, we could discuss various topics, including Scotland or Northern Ireland, but we don't do that. But in this case, the whole idea of debating on a certain topic, on a subject that is sensitive, where particularly I'm very angered by the fact that they've allowed something like this. And you'll be surprised, the education system is indeed stretched. You know, the fees have just been raised, so a lot of students come here. And the UK should be cognizant of the fact that indeed India is a superpower now and will probably be one of the largest economies by 2050. We are on the threshold of signing a free trade agreement. And I sort of believe that the Indian government will come out and talk about this, because this is not a topic that is going away.
Okay.
If it's because there are other instances of other separatists that have sort of have a footing in the UK, and that needs to be curtailed.
Okay, all right. Ambassador Mukherjee, well, it won't be the first time, it won't be the last time that something like this is going to happen in Oxford or Cambridge. But there's another angle to it which I would like you to respond to, is of course our politicians going from time to time to these universities and engaging with the unions and other members to talk about agendas that have belittled India in the past as well. Do you think that is also something that is also a behavior, a disposition which should stop if we do not want to have these debates again?
Certainly, Indian politicians in a vibrant democracy used to have a gentleman's agreement earlier that they don't pull down the country's internal affairs outside India. And that would be particularly true in the home of our former colonizer, the United Kingdom. Definitely. But in this particular instance, and I have been a tough debater. My parents brought me up as a Sanatan Dharmi. I went to Delhi University. I was a crack debater. We used to debate a lot of issues, but we never debated divisive issues which would cause feeling of injury to those who would hear it, because of obvious reasons that debate. What is the reason why top universities debate, whether it's Oxford or Cambridge or it's Delhi University, where I come from? It is intended to instill confidence in the students so that they can talk well on any issue. And certainly the fact that I was a crack debater helped me to crack the civil service exam and become a diplomat at the age of 21 and a half. But the whole issue is, in this particular case, the topic was completely unbalanced. The speakers were totally biased. The president is a Pakistani. We don't know what his linkages are. And I am surprised, in fact I am amazed, that a university like Oxford, for which I had so much regard, could have actually allowed such an infringement of its own traditions inside such a hallowed institution. And let's not forget, as I said, whether it is Harvard University in the United States or Oxford and Cambridge, they produce all these haw-haw colonialists who came and took away our wealth, who impoverished us, who treated us without mercy. They used to regard us as second-class citizens, close to animals, and then they sit in judgment on us when we are a proud democracy and the third largest economy in the world, and they think that they can still sermonize and lecture us through their proxies. Because who are these in Oxford University but proxies? The Pakistani is a proxy. The JKLF is a proxy. It was rightly pointed out the JKLF cannot win any election. Then, why then in 2024 should the haw-haw British think that they can still sermonize us, lecture us, hold a finger up to us? And why, beneath, do we not do the same? The answer is very clear. We don't do the same because in our culture and civilization, we treat guests from other countries like family. That's the difference. That's the reason we don't do it. Now I can ask the question to my countrymen and women listening to the debate. Is that necessarily a wise strategy in 2024 when you have the deep state operating in the West? Maybe not such a good strategy. Maybe India should think that when we talk of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the sentence before it says, Udhara Charita Nama Tu Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means to my British friends here, it is only for the generous-hearted that the world is one family. I don't think the people who participated in this debate are generous-hearted, and therefore I don't consider them to be my family. I think we should be much more tough, we should be much more aggressive, we should deal with them the way they try to deal with us. Vineet.
Okay. All right. Let me, in fact, once again get a response from Nicholas on this, and then I'm going to circle around the other panelists as well and get their opinion of what has been said in the last few minutes. Nicholas, would you like to respond to Bhaswati Mukherjee?
Well, I don't have much to add. I've already said that I joined the debate because I think it was about the pros and cons of Oxford debating the subject. You've made it clear that I'm in a minority of one there. One or two of the speakers have said it should have been stopped, it shouldn't have been allowed, and I'm questioning who should have taken that action. You seem to be implying the British government should have stopped it, but it just doesn't work like that here. And I think even the authorities of Oxford University would have very limited ability to stop a debate legitimately proposed by membership of the Oxford Union. So I'm a little sort of unclear of the mechanics of how that would happen. But you have left me with no doubt of the strong sensitivity of feelings, which I also remember when the attack on the Indian High Commission took place a year or more ago. yes, I'm very sympathetic to you, and indeed, if I'm not mistaken, the government of the day apologised, or maybe the police apologised for the burning of the Indian flag, which I think happened when that attack happened at the High Commission. In other words, there's no concerted move here by the state or whatever. Government policy hasn't changed, and I fall back on my right to free speech and the right of a group of individuals to set up that debate in Oxford. It's not going to change government policy. It's not going to change the thinking of British people. But I believe that right to discuss foreign affairs in general and this particular issue is important in our country.
Okay.
Another time I would be happy to engage in a debate with you on the rights and wrongs of Kashmir and whatever, but I would need to read up first because I haven't been looking at that topic for a while. But I have read very substantially on the subject, but I'm not in a position to engage in that debate now. So I again want to say I'm limiting myself to the discussion or the aspect which is about the rights and wrongs of the Oxford Union to debate the topic. And you may well have a point there that they didn't choose the right speakers or it wasn't a balanced panel. I simply don't know about that. And if that was the case, then I have some sympathy with your challenging it. But what I would strongly condemn is the suggestion that anybody should have stopped a debate, whether it be the government, whether it be the Oxford authorities themselves, or indeed anybody else. Free speech means...
Okay. All right, Nicholas, let me just stop you right there. We have a caller. Rajiv Seth is giving us a call from Mumbai. Rajiv, go on. What do you have to say?
Mr. Malhotra, this country which calls itself Great Britain is running an agenda of a country like Pakistan. It's high time this.
Go on, Rajiv. Go on. We can hear you.
And so they must change their name from Great Britain to Great Pakistan now. And then they can go on with such type of debates about Kashmir. We'll give them more subjects if they want, like Manipur, Kashmir, why Kashmir, even West Bengal. So many subjects they can handle.
Okay, all right, valid point. Let me open Lord Rami Ranger back into this conversation.
Yeah.
Sir, you wanted to say something. Go on.
As a British politician, the race relation, social cohesion and unity of a country is paramount. If we import garbage from foreign country to divide ourselves and to divide our community, even Pakistani, even Indian, even Bangladeshi, we now have one country and king. We are one. We should not allow any outside influence to come and divide us, because it's going to leave a lot of unfortunate effect for the next generation. So therefore, any topic, I agree with Mr. Nugent, the British government cannot interfere in the affairs of the civilians or the public, but the Oxford University have a duty to ensure that they do not bring dissent into their campus, where the Pakistanis and Indians are becoming even more hostile to each other. The Britain will suffer in the end, nobody else. Pakistan, India are far, far away from this politics. So therefore, it's very, very important. The freedom of speech does not allow us to score our own goal. It is very hard at the moment, the legislation and social cohesion, when the foreign influences with foreign agenda, with their selfish agenda, come to divide British people, whose destinies are now linked for the success and the prosperity of this great country. Thank you.
All right,
I'd like to make a point about freedom of speech.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. Then we go to Mr. Gulati.
So I would like to say that...
Just 1 second. Mr. Gulati, I'll come to you. Let ma'am finish her point. I'll come to you, sir.
I'd just like to mention two topics and ask him what he would feel about it. First is, the white man has the right to rule the black and the brown in perpetuity. Topic for a debate. Second, apartheid was the greatest system brought by the white man on the blacks. Good topic. Freedom of speech. These are called politically incorrect topics. These are not topics that we would discuss here in India because we feel they are politically incorrect and they result in hate speech. So I fully believe in freedom of speech. I am a liberal Democrat, but I believe that every liberty comes with responsibility. So when you exercise liberty without responsibility, you are digging your own grave. I have said the last word on the topic. Thank you.
Mr. Gulati, come in.
I think the topic at the outset was deliberate and wrong. As I hinted earlier, Kashmir is and always will remain, the entire part of Jammu and Kashmir will be part of India. And indeed, the people on the panel are reprehensibly chosen and they should never have been there. A debate is meant to be balanced. And as the ambassador said earlier, there are certain topics. Freedom of speech does not mean you can discuss anything. And I sincerely believe and strongly believe that the Oxford University should have come out and changed the topic. A debate means both sides of the motion need to be discussed. And that should have been all right. But the topic itself chosen here was wrong. And I believe this should have been curtailed. And as Lord Ranger was hinting earlier, that the fact that the government of the land is supposed to look at their own issues, and we are at an inflection point geopolitically. There are a couple of conflicts going on. We can't discuss an India-Pakistan, which is fomented by Pakistan. As I hinted earlier, the President of the Union comes from Pakistan. We're not sure. I believe there were people in the audience meant to be, somebody from the Labour Party was there, and indeed some other people from JKLF and others were in the room. That should never have been allowed. So freedom of speech, notwithstanding, needs to be in a fashion which does not discuss topics that are not even required to be discussed because they're not something that any government should be allowing, or the university in this case.
You're absolutely right, sir. And unfortunately, these are the realities that we have to cope up with. And another reality is that we've run out of time, but I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to all our panelists.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.